The radio crackled to life at 0347 hours Pacific Standard Time, cutting through the pre-dawn silence of the Coast Guard station in Honolulu like a knife through silk. What came through that speaker would haunt veteran rescue coordinator Captain James Mitchell for the rest of his career, not because of what was said, but because of what couldn't possibly be true. Mayday, Mayday, this is sailing vessel Aurora's Dream. The transmission dissolved into static, then returned with a voice so calm it was unsettling. We are requesting immediate assistance. Our position is... Wait, that can't be right. A pause, then quieter, almost conversational. The GPS is showing coordinates that put us 300 miles inland, somewhere in the Nevada desert. Captain Mitchell leaned forward, his coffee growing cold, as he listened to something that would rewrite everything he thought he knew about the ocean, about reality, about the thin line between what's possible and what isn't. The voice continued, steady and matter-of-fact. We've been sailing for 6 days since leaving San Francisco, but according to our instruments, we never left the harbor. Every single navigation system is telling us we're still tied to the dock at Marina Green. Except we can see nothing but open ocean in every direction. This is the story that defies every law of physics, every principle of navigation, and every rational explanation the maritime world has ever produced. In the next hour, you're going to discover the complete account of the Aurora's Dream incident, the actual Coast Guard transcripts, the physical evidence that investigators tried to bury, and why this story has been quietly suppressed by maritime authorities for over a decade. Because what the Castellano family experienced during those 6 impossible days at sea doesn't just challenge our understanding of navigation, it challenges our understanding of reality itself. The story begins 3 years earlier, in a suburban garage in Palo Alto, California, where software engineer David Castellano was living a double life. By day, he debugged code for a major tech company, but every evening at exactly 6:15 p.m., he would disappear into his garage, closing the door on the digital world and entering a realm of wood, brass, and dreams. David wasn't just restoring Aurora's Dream, he was resurrecting her. The 1987 Catalina 42 had been abandoned in a marina in Oakland for nearly 5 years when he found her. Her hull stained with neglect, her sails rotted, her electronics gutted by thieves. Most people saw a floating disaster. David saw possibility. He saw freedom. He saw the vessel that would carry his family away from the suffocating predictability of Silicon Valley life. His wife, Sarah, a marine biologist with quiet intensity, had been the first to suggest it. They were sitting at their kitchen table on a Tuesday night in March, watching their 12-year-old daughter, Emma, struggle with algebra homework, when she looked up from her research papers and said, "What if we just left? What if we sold everything and bought a boat and actually lived the life we keep talking about?" For 15 years of marriage, the idea had surfaced during dinner conversations and late-night talks when modern life felt overwhelming. But this time was different. David pulled out his laptop right there at the kitchen table and started researching boats for sale. Within a week, they'd driven to Oakland to look at Aurora's Dream. Within a month, they'd bought her. Within 3 years, they'd transformed her from a derelict into a palace. David's engineering background served him well. He rewired the entire electrical system, installed state-of-the-art navigation equipment, upgraded everything. He approached the restoration with methodical precision, creating spreadsheets that tracked every component, every upgrade, every system. Sarah focused on the biological aspects, researching marine life they'd encounter, planning their route to coincide with whale migrations. Emma, initially skeptical, gradually became the family's most enthusiastic navigator, spending hours studying charts and teaching herself celestial navigation. They weren't naive dreamers. David held a captain's license and had sailed competitively in college. Sarah's work had taken her on research vessels throughout the Pacific. Emma could tie knots that would impress veteran sailors and could read weather patterns with almost supernatural intuition. They'd completed 3 major shakedown cruises, including a challenging passage to Hawaii and back, without incident. the Coast Guard auxiliary instructor, who certified their safety equipment called Aurora's Dream, the most thoroughly prepared recreational vessel I've ever inspected. On the morning of September 15th, they cast off from Marina Green with euphoric anticipation. The weather forecast showed favorable conditions, gentle northwest winds, mild seas, and clear skies. As they motored through the Golden Gate Bridge, Sarah stood at the bow with tears of joy. After 3 years of preparation and 15 years of dreaming, they were finally free. The first day was everything they'd hoped. They sailed south along the California coast, watching sea lions play in their wake. David taught Emma sail adjustment techniques. Sarah spotted gray whales migrating south, explaining their feeding patterns to Emma, who recorded everything in her detailed log. That evening, anchored in a protected cove near Monterey, they ate dinner under a canopy of stars that seemed impossibly bright after years of suburban light pollution. The second day brought perfect sailing conditions. They made excellent time, covering nearly 180 nautical miles as Aurora's Dream sliced through gentle swells with bird-like grace. The third day settled them into ocean sailing rhythm, 4-hour watches, shared meals, and conversations that only happen when completely removed from modern distractions. Sarah photographed dolphins riding their bow wave. Emma discovered natural talent for celestial navigation, using a sextant to calculate their position with remarkable accuracy. But on the fourth morning, the first anomaly occurred, something so subtle they almost dismissed it entirely. David was checking their position on the GPS chart plotter when he noticed something odd. According to satellite navigation, they were exactly where they should be, about 400 nautical miles southwest of San Francisco. But when he cross-referenced with Emma's celestial fix from the previous evening, there was a 20-mile discrepancy. When he checked their dead reckoning based on course and distance traveled, it matched Emma's celestial fix, not the GPS. Sarah suggested taking another GPS reading in a few hours. David agreed, making a note but not dwelling on it. GPS systems occasionally experience temporary inaccuracies due to satellite geometry or atmospheric interference. Except it didn't resolve. By evening, the discrepancy had grown to nearly 30 miles, with GPS consistently showing them farther north and east than manual calculations indicated. More troubling, when David tried accessing weather routing via satellite internet, the system couldn't establish their location. The weather service displayed an error. Position coordinates invalid. Please check your location and try again. That's weird, Sarah said, looking over his shoulder. Try refreshing. Multiple attempts and system reboots produced the same result. According to the internet, they didn't exist at any verifiable location. Emma looked up from her navigation textbooks. What if we try the radio? Maybe get a position report from someone else and compare it to ours. David switched on their long-range radio and monitored frequencies used by other vessels. Within minutes, they heard another sailboat reporting their position to a commercial vessel. David plotted the position, then tried raising the sailboat directly. Sailing vessel Windward Passage. This is sailing vessel Aurora's Dream. Do you copy? Aurora's Dream. This is Windward Passage. Good to hear another voice out here. What's your position? David gave their GPS coordinates. Long pause. Aurora's Dream. Can you repeat that position? We're showing you about 40 miles north of where you just said you are. David felt his stomach tighten. He repeated the coordinates directly from their GPS display. Another pause. Aurora's Dream. That position would put you almost back to the California coast. Are you sure your GPS is working correctly? David looked at Sarah, who had gone pale. Their GPS showed them 400 miles offshore. Another vessel's radar showed them 40 miles from the California coast. Both couldn't be true. By morning of the fifth day, they had a collection of mutually contradictory position reports that defied every navigation principle. Their GPS said 450 miles southwest of San Francisco. Their satellite communication system couldn't establish position at all. Two different vessels placed them at completely different locations. Emma's celestial navigation, consistent throughout the journey, now placed them somewhere matching none of the electronic readings. Most unsettling, when they tried using their satellite phone to call the Coast Guard for position verification, they kept getting, "The number you have dialed is not in service from your current location." David spent the fifth day checking and rechecking navigation systems. He ran full GPS diagnostics, all showed perfect signal strength and satellite lock. He verified compass calibration, checked autopilot heading references, took manual sun bearings. Everything seemed perfect. The instruments simply disagreed with each other and external verification. Sarah tried a different approach, using her marine biology background to identify bird species and compare them to expected wildlife at their supposed position. The results were disturbing. They were seeing coastal species that shouldn't exist 400 miles offshore, mixed with deep ocean birds that shouldn't be near the coast. It was as if they were sailing through multiple ecosystems simultaneously. Emma made perhaps the most disturbing discovery. She'd been tracking their progress on paper charts as backup, marking daily positions with pencil. When she connected the position marks, the line showed them sailing in a perfect circle, departing San Francisco, heading southwest, then gradually curving back toward their starting point, even though compass and autopilot showed constant southwesterly heading. "This doesn't make sense," she said, showing the chart to her parents. "According to this, we never actually left the San Francisco area. We've been sailing in a big loop, even though we've been heading straight the whole time." David stared at the chart, feeling something cold settle in his chest. "The instruments have to be wrong." Sarah studied Emma's pencil line, her expression growing troubled. "What if the instruments are right? What if they're all right, but measuring something we don't understand?" At 300 on the 6th morning, David made the radio call that would change everything. He'd been lying in his bunk, listening to familiar sounds of Aurora's Dream moving through water. The whisper along the hull, gentle rigging creaks, steady wind generator hum. These were sounds of progress through ocean, sounds he'd heard on hundreds of sailing trips. They were real, physical, undeniable, but according to navigation systems, they weren't making progress. According to Emma's plotting, they were sailing in circles. According to other vessels, they were in different locations than their instruments indicated. According to satellite communication, they were nowhere at all. David climbed into the cockpit. The night was clear, with visibility stretching to the horizon. He could see stars reflecting off water, feel the boat's motion, smell salt air. Everything seemed normal, yet nothing was normal. He switched on the radio and transmitted on Coast Guard emergency frequency. U.S. Coast Guard, this is sailing vessel Aurora's Dream with a navigation emergency. Aurora's Dream, this is Coast Guard Group Golden Gate. What is the nature of your emergency? Coast Guard, we have been experiencing navigation anomalies for 3 days. Our position finding systems provide contradictory information, and we cannot establish our actual location. Aurora's Dream, please provide your current position and the nature of discrepancies. David took a deep breath. Coast Guard, this will sound impossible, but our GPS shows us 450 miles southwest of San Francisco. However, our dead reckoning and celestial navigation place us much closer to shore, and 2 other vessels have reported us at completely different positions. Additionally, our satellite communication shows invalid coordinates. Longer pause than usual. Aurora's Dream, are you reporting GPS malfunction? Negative, Coast Guard. We have 3 independent GPS receivers, all showing the same position with strong satellite signals. The problem is, this position doesn't match any other navigation method, and other vessels can't confirm our location. Aurora's Dream, please stand by while we attempt to locate you on radar. David waited, watching the horizon and trying to make sense of a situation defying logic. Stars were where they should be. The ocean looked, sounded, and felt exactly as it should. But somehow, they were lost in a way that shouldn't be possible with modern technology. Aurora's Dream, Coast Guard Group Golden Gate. Go ahead, Coast Guard. We are unable to locate you on any radar or tracking systems. Can you provide visual description of current conditions and any landmarks? David looked around, climbed on cabin top for better view. Coast Guard. Current conditions are calm seas, light northwest winds, clear skies with excellent visibility, no landmarks visible. We appear to be in open ocean. Aurora's Dream. Based on your reported GPS position, you should be well beyond our radar coverage. We're launching a search aircraft to attempt visual contact. Please continue monitoring this frequency and maintain current course. Coast Guard. There's something else. David hesitated. Our navigation log shows us sailing in a circular pattern despite maintaining constant heading, and we're observing wildlife that shouldn't exist at our reported position. Long pause. Aurora's Dream. Please repeat your last transmission. David repeated his observations, adding Emma's chart discoveries and Sarah's wildlife observations. Aurora's Dream. We need detailed documentation of all navigation readings and observations. We're launching an HC-130 from Air Station Sacramento with estimated time to your reported position of 2 hours. Please prepare flares for visual identification. As dawn broke, David gathered his family in the main cabin. Sarah looked exhausted from worry, and Emma's usual enthusiasm had been replaced by quiet intensity. They're sending a plane, he told them. Whatever's happening, the Coast Guard is taking it seriously. Sarah nodded, expression remaining troubled. David, I've been thinking about wildlife patterns. It's not just wrong species for our location. We're seeing species that shouldn't coexist. Yesterday I saw tropical terns feeding alongside Arctic species. That's like finding penguins and flamingos in the same flock. Emma looked up from her textbook. I've been checking my celestial calculations. They're correct. I've triple-checked math, verified almanac data, accounted for instrument error. According to the stars, we're not where GPS says, but we're also not where other boats say. It's like we're in a place that doesn't exist on any chart. David felt a chill, unrelated to morning air. What do you mean, doesn't exist? Emma spread charts on the cabin table, pointing to various pencil marks. Look, if you take all position readings, GPS, celestial, dead reckoning, radio bearings, and plot them, they form a pattern. Not random errors, but definite pattern. It's like we're sailing through a region where normal navigation rules don't apply. Sarah leaned over the charts, studying Emma's work. My God, she's right. These aren't random discrepancies. They're systematic. It's as if space itself is distorted. Aircraft engines reached them at exactly 0947 hours, growing louder until a Coast Guard HC-130 Hercules thundered overhead at low altitude. David fired 3 red flares in sequence, and the aircraft immediately began circling. He could see the crew pointing cameras and sensors in their direction. The radio crackled. Aurora's Dream, this is Coast Guard 6214. We have you in sight and are documenting your position. Please stand by for instructions. Delay. After several passes, during which the aircraft took extensive photographs and sensor readings, they made contact again. Aurora's Dream, Coast Guard 6014. We need to ask specific questions about your journey. First, are you certain you departed San Francisco 6 days ago? David exchanged glances with his family. Affirmative, Coast Guard. We departed Marina Green at 800 local time on September 15th. Aurora's Dream. Can you describe your route since departure? David provided detailed account of their journey, including planned course, actual headings, and daily positions. Aurora's Dream. We need you to understand that what you're telling us is not consistent with our observations. According to our navigation systems, you are currently positioned approximately 12 miles west of the Golden Gate Bridge. David felt the world tilt. Coast Guard. That's impossible. We've been sailing for 6 days. We should be hundreds of miles from San Francisco. Aurora's Dream. We understand this is confusing. However, multiple independent systems confirm your position as just outside San Francisco Bay. We're going to escort you back to port for full investigation. The journey back to San Francisco took 3 hours, during which their GPS continued showing them hundreds of miles offshore. Satellite communication continued reporting invalid coordinates, and Emma's celestial navigation continued placing them in impossible locations. Yet Aurora's dream was clearly moving toward the California coast, evidenced by increasing fishing boats, coastal birds, and finally, the distinctive outline of the Marin headlands. As they approached the Golden Gate Bridge, David made one final radio call. Coast Guard 6014, Aurora's Dream. Can you tell us how this is possible? How can we be returning to San Francisco after sailing away from it for 6 days? The response came in a tone suggesting the Coast Guard crew was as baffled as the Castellano family. Aurora's Dream, we wish we could provide an explanation. What we can tell you is that according to all our tracking systems, you never left the San Francisco Bay area. Our radar records show Aurora's Dream departing Marina Green 6 days ago, then remaining within a 20-mile radius, despite maintaining what appeared to be constant southwesterly heading. The investigation that followed consumed 18 months and involved experts from the Coast Guard, National Weather Service, GPS satellite operators, and marine electronics manufacturers. The official report ran over 300 pages and concluded with a paragraph summarizing collective bewilderment. The Aurora's Dream incident represents an unprecedented anomaly in maritime navigation. All electronic systems aboard the vessel functioned within normal parameters throughout the 6-day period. External tracking systems consistently placed the vessel near the California coast during the entire journey. However, the crew's observations and experiences are consistent with a deep ocean passage covering several hundred nautical miles. No technical malfunction has been identified that could explain the discrepancy between the crew's experience and the documented vessel position. But the official report didn't include several key pieces of evidence deemed too sensitive for public release. David's engineering background had led him to install redundant data logging systems throughout Aurora's Dream, recording position, heading, environmental conditions, power consumption, engine hours, and dozens of parameters painting a detailed picture of vessel operation. When investigators analyzed these logs, they found something defying explanation. The logs clearly showed Aurora's Dream consuming fuel, generating power, and operating systems at rates consistent with extended ocean sailing. Autopilot logs showed constant course corrections to maintain southwesterly heading against varying wind and current conditions. Watermaker logs showed daily fresh water production from seawater with salinity levels typical of deep ocean conditions, not brackish water found near San Francisco Bay. Most puzzling, the boat's hull sensors recorded impact patterns from marine life throughout the journey, subtle vibrations from dolphins riding bow waves, distinctive sonar pings from whale pods, impacts of flying fish hitting rigging. Marine biologists analyzing these recordings identified species that don't exist in California coastal waters, yet acoustic signatures were undeniably real. Dr. Sarah Castellano's biological samples told the same impossible story. Water samples contained plankton species found only in deep Pacific waters. Photographs of birds and marine mammals showed species that migrate through Central Pacific but are never seen near the California coast. Fish scales scraped from the hull were identified as coming from species living at depths and distances incompatible with the vessel's supposed location. Emma's navigation logs, with careful celestial observations and mathematical calculations, were perhaps most disturbing evidence. Independent verification by professional navigators confirmed her sun and star sights were accurate and calculations correct. If her observations were taken at face value, Aurora's Dream had sailed hundreds of miles into the Pacific. Yet radar tracks showed the vessel never leaving the immediate San Francisco area. The most classified portion focused on GPS anomalies. Aurora's Dream carried 3 independent GPS receivers from different manufacturers, all maintaining satellite lock and providing consistent position readings throughout the journey. When GPS satellite operators were contacted, they confirmed all satellites in view had been functioning normally and position solutions transmitted to Aurora's Dream were mathematically correct based on satellite geometry and signal timing. However, when investigators attempted independent verification of satellite data, they discovered something unprecedented. The timing signals GPS satellites had been transmitting to Aurora's Dream were correct for the vessel's reported position, hundreds of miles offshore. But timing signals the same satellites transmitted to other vessels in the area were correct for near coastal positions. Somehow, the GPS constellation had simultaneously transmitted different timing signals to the same geographic area, something that should be physically impossible. Dr. Marcus Webb, the lead Coast Guard investigator, spent 6 months analyzing every aspect of the incident. His private notes, obtained years later through Freedom of Information requests, revealed his frustration with a case challenging everything he understood about maritime science. We are confronted with evidence suggesting the Castellano family experienced a genuine ocean voyage while simultaneously never leaving the San Francisco Bay Area. Both statements appear to be true, despite being mutually exclusive. We have documented proof of their coastal position and equally documented proof of their deep ocean experience. The only conclusion fitting all evidence is that they somehow existed in both locations simultaneously, a conclusion violating everything we know about physics and geography. The implications extend far beyond a single navigation anomaly. If the Castellano family's experience was real, and evidence strongly suggests it was, then our understanding of space, time, and reality itself may be fundamentally incomplete. More disturbing are other reports that surfaced after news of the investigation leaked to the maritime community. Sailors worldwide contacted authorities with similar experiences, voyages seeming to cover vast distances, while GPS and radar tracking suggested minimal movement. Wildlife sightings not matching vessel positions, navigation anomalies defying explanation. The Aurora's Dream case files remain officially classified, though portions have been released through FOIA requests. The vessel was impounded for 6 months, while investigators conducted exhaustive analysis of every system, component, and square inch of hull and rigging. When finally returned to the Castellano family, she was accompanied by monitoring equipment tracking her position using multiple independent methods. David, Sarah, and Emma never completed their planned Pacific crossing. The experience had shaken them too profoundly, raising questions about reality they weren't prepared to confront again. They sold Aurora's Dream 18 months after the incident and returned to suburban life in Palo Alto. Emma, now in her 20s, became a theoretical physicist specializing in quantum mechanics and space-time nature. Her published papers on localized distortions in space-time geometry have gained academic attention, though she's never publicly connected her research to her family's experience. She continues sailing recreationally, but always in coastal waters and never for more than a day. Sarah returned to marine biology research, but shifted focus to deep ocean ecosystems and migration patterns of species, venturing into the Pacific's least explored regions. Her work has contributed to understanding how marine life navigates vast oceanic distances, though she acknowledges many aspects of animal navigation remain mysterious. David never sailed again. The engineer in him couldn't reconcile what they'd experienced with what should be possible, and the contradiction left him unable to trust instruments or senses regarding navigation. He speaks publicly about the incident only rarely, and when he does, it's with careful precision of someone whose learned reality is more fragile than most realize. The Aurora's Dream incident has become legend in sailing circles, whispered about in marina bars and yacht clubs worldwide. Most sailors dismiss it as elaborate hoax or mass hallucination, but a few, particularly those with extensive deep Pacific experience, admit to their own navigation anomalies, moments when instruments disagreed with senses, when position seemed impossible, when the ocean itself seemed to operate according to unknown rules. For sailors contemplating extended ocean passages, the Aurora's Dream incident serves as sobering reminder that the sea remains fundamentally mysterious despite modern technology and scientific understanding. GPS satellites can fail, instruments can malfunction, human perception can be deceived, but what happened to the Castellano family suggests that sometimes the ocean itself might operate according to undiscovered rule. The deeper lesson may be that reality is more complex and mysterious than everyday experience suggests. The Aurora's Dream incident forces us to confront the possibility that our understanding of space, time, and physical existence is incomplete, and that phenomena in our world challenge our most basic assumptions about how things work. In the end, the Castellano family story isn't just about navigation or sailing or ocean mysteries. It's about the humbling realization that despite scientific advances and technological capabilities, we still live in a universe full of unknowns. Sometimes those unknowns find us when we least expect them, reminding us that reality is stranger, more wonderful, and more terrifying than we've dared imagine. The Pacific Ocean stretches across 1/3 of our planet's surface, its deepest trenches still unexplored, its furthest reaches unmapped. In those vast blue spaces where satellite coverage grows thin and rescue is days away, other families continue chasing dreams of freedom and adventure. They carry modern GPS systems and satellite communicators, confident that technology will keep them safe and oriented. But somewhere in those endless blue miles, the ghost of Aurora's Dream serves as reminder that the ocean's greatest mysteries aren't marked on charts, can't be detected by instruments, and may never be explained by science. For the sea keeps its own counsel, follows its own laws, and reveals its secrets only to those prepared to accept that some questions have no answers. And sometimes, the most impossible stories turn out to be the most true.